One of the challenges you are likely to face when you write the Harvard MBA Leadership Essay is around word planning. Because the word count is only 250 words, you need to be strategic with your word planning on how you establish the context of the setback or a challenge. Leadership essays don't work without setbacks or challenges. You have to pick the right example and then set the right context. For example, one of the leadership essay narrative that I have shared in F1 GMAT starts with the line, "Our client CFO resigned 6 weeks into our cost transformation engagement." This kind of statement is called a crisis statement because you're starting with a crisis. And then the next sentence offers additional context on what the crisis was. "Our client CFO resigned 6 weeks into a cost transformation engagement. The new CFO froze all our recommendations until further review." This is a narrative for a consultant, and her resume entry read like this: "Led a 3-person team through a 3-month cost transformation engagement covering $1.2 billion in annual operating spend, diagnosing $180 million of addressable cost, which was formalized for the new CFO." It's a very confusing line. If I was an editor, I would cut that entry. I would edit that resume entry and clearly show that this is a cost-cutting project. So as a consultant, they had to find businesses, subsidiary costs, where they could save some costs. So this was the whole consulting engagement. The best way to start any 200 or 250 word essay about leadership is to start with a crisis statement, and the next sentence should offer additional context on about why it's a crisis. So just by saying that our client CFO resigned 6 weeks into a cost transformation engagement kind of primes the reader that something else is going to happen. So you have to offer that something else. So the next sentence says, "The new CFO froze all our recommendations until further review." So the client's team, applicant's team had given elaborate 3 months of research and consulting and then offered a recommendation. So when the CFO changed, the new CFO froze all their recommendations. So these two sentences offer great context about what the challenge was. Again, you have to offer more context so that the person understands. "We had worked hard to persuade and implement the finer details that the CFO's predecessor had envisioned. Overnight, 3 months of analysis had no sponsor." So now you're offering another line to establish the challenge the applicant was facing. In the final edit, obviously, you will compress it further, you will edit it, refine it further. But when you write the first draft, offer more and more context with each line. And then the narrative switches to the applicant because the question is about her leadership style. "My first instinct was not to transmit my worry about the disruption to the team." So this is a very good line. Why it's a good line? This is an explicit line about her leadership style. She's using the word instincts. My first instinct was not to transmit my worry about the disruption to the team. So the leadership style is a bit of like a stoic, where she absorbs the pressure but doesn't pass on the pressure to the team. But she understands what is expected out of her team. Now the admission person will look into her leadership style because she used the word "my first instinct." Then the next paragraph offers more context about the challenge they were facing. "The two analysts were watching me closely and asked for updates on our recommendations. I carried on our daily morning stand-up meetings and shared the changes happening with the client. I assigned a new task, research about the new CFO and understand the direction in which the leadership is heading." This is a leadership style you are establishing through the essay without explicitly revealing any traits. You can't say something like, "My leadership style is often research intensive or strategic." That's a wasted opportunity. It's always a good idea to show and don't tell. Show what you've done. By showing what you've done, you are establishing your leadership style. So this goes for not just for Harvard's leadership essay, for any leadership or any narrative that you write for MBA application essays. Follow the storytelling mantra. Show, don't tell. Don't tell what your leadership style is. Show. Then the admissions person will understand your leadership style. None of this is a problem. It's a very good opening line. Establish the crisis statement immediately. Adds more context with each paragraph. It's all going good. But there's one problem that I've seen happen often with Harvard MBA applicants. That is the middle. Middle is where most applicants lose some momentum. That's the exact moment when the admissions person also lose interest in your story because they have volume goals. They have to read so many essays. So that middle, you have to treat it like your opener. So I'll read the middle, the problematic middle. I requested 30 minutes with the new CFO. She didn't want to hear out the previous pitch on cost cuts, but was keen on releasing the cash trapped in inefficient businesses. Our diagnostic remained the same, but we widened the choices from 2 cost releases to 4 to 5. For a consultant, it was less satisfying to hand over a set of choices than a set of concrete answers, but it matched how she expected consultants to deliver. She approved the redirected work plan. Now that's a very poorly written middle, not the build-up on our diagnostic, right? Our diagnostic remained the same. So it's a more how the applicant works efficiently without panicking, without changing the entire scope of the project. It's all good line. But the question is about how she leads her team. So there is no narrative about her, how she's leading the team. She immediately transitions to client approved the redirected plan. So it is too soon. You have to offer more context about the communication with the teammates, with the analyst, how she managed their expectation, how she built that team to the new challenge, how she offered autonomy, what was the change in strategy, how she nurtured that talent. So all these context has to be offered instead of a generic, our diagnostic remained the same, but we widen the choices from 2 cost releases to 4 to 5. These lines could be easily integrated into your resume. For example, the MBA resume entries led a 3% team through a 3-month cost transformation engagement covering $1.2 billion annual operating costs, diagnosing $180 million of addressable costs, which was formalized for the new CEO. This could be easily edited to show the challenges they face when the CFO changed and how they expanded cost-cutting measures from 2 to 3 points, 2 to 3 deliverables to 3 to 5 deliverables where they could really save up to $180 million of cost. This could have been captured in the resume and then expanded in the essay. But that is not the narrative weakness here. The weakness is there is no line about how she invested in the team, invested in the mentees. If I were an applicant, I would write something like, this is the middle I would write. I asked each analyst to bring one concrete thing they had learned about the new CFO, a past interview, a decision from her prior company, a public comment on how she read a P&L. The 2 analysts worked together and I oversaw the intelligence building to create a profile of the new CFO. By the end of the week, we had conclusive evidence that she trusted a presentation with enough hints which she could explore herself or a set of conclusive recommendations. I mentored my team to adapt and we rebuilt the deliverable before we ever sat down with her. So this paragraph captures the new CFO's working style, captures how the entire team adapted to her working style, also captures how the applicant mentored the 2 analysts. So instead of having 2 to 3 paragraphs about different contexts, this is 1 paragraph covering 3 contexts. How to do research about the new CFO, how the applicant nurtured the 2 analysts, and how they delivered all in 1 paragraph. That is the middle. And then when you go to the conclusion, the focus on the change expected from the disruption gave our team a favorable outcome. Again, a very weak closer. Once you've worked on the middle, you have to work on the closing line. The line has to be impactful. If you are stuck with the closing line, always reiterate the question. So if, let's say, the question is, what experience have shaped how you invest in others and how you lead? The concluding line should be, my leadership style, ABC. You can conclude in a cliched manner that is expected out of you, that will reiterate what your leadership style is. There, you don't have to worry about cliches. The cliches are a problem when it is part of your opening line, because the opening line and opening paragraph is all about capturing the admissions person's attention. There, you should avoid all cliches. If you want my help in editing your Harvard MBA application or any top MBA application essays, reach out to me, Atul Jose, at editor@f1gmat.com, or you may subscribe at store.f1gmat.com/essay-editing.